And my father's truck was on top of my 300ZX. From the age of 17 to 25, I had about 26 car incidents. So not all car wrecks. I call them incidents because I wasn't actually in the car for them. And a couple of my favorite ones are when my parents hit my car a few times. So when I was in college, my dad bought me my first car, and it was a BMW, and it was my child. I loved it so much, and I babied it. I'd come home from college, I would park it in the driveway because I didn't want to park it in the street. And our driveway was long enough, so I parked it behind my mom, and she would be able to come out of the garage and, swing out so she didn't hit the car. Well, one day I was in my bedroom, which was above the garage, and I heard the garage door go up, and I heard a smash, and I immediately lifted my window, and I looked out, and my mom's car was smashed into my BMW. So I called my dad, because, hey, I didn't have a job. I wasn't going to be the one paying to fix it. And he, kind of had a fit, but the car got fixed. And after that, he told me to park the car on his side of the garage. So that's what I did from there on out. And it was maybe 2 or 3 months later, I came home from college. I was parked behind my dad, and my mom was leaving to go shopping. And all of a sudden I heard crash. And I couldn't believe what I had heard. I opened my window, I looked out, and my mom had pulled out diagonally and smashed into my car this way. So that was also a fun phone call to my father. And then a couple of years later, I got another car. It was a 300ZX, and I was still in college, and I was home from college. And I parked behind my father, and I was home up in my room doing whatever, and I heard my grandmother, who lived with us at the time, have a big argument with my dad. And then I heard the garage door open, and I heard some really heavy throttle out of the garage and a huge crash. And once again, I looked out my window, and my father's truck was on top of my 300ZX. So we had to have a tow truck come and literally lift my dad's truck up off my car and back my car out. So that was, those are 3 of my 20-some car incidents. I remember one, it was in the BMW. I would take that car through a car wash, which I would never do nowadays, but I took it through the car wash, and it was one of those ones where you sat in the car while you went through, and all of a sudden I heard boom! This loud crash. I thought there was a shot. I literally thought someone shot at my car. And when I got out of the car wash, my windshield was smashed. So I had to pay before I went through, right? So after I went out and saw my windshield smashed, unfortunately, I was panicked and didn't stay there and mention it to the guy. I drove home with a smashed windshield. And I told my dad, and my dad's like, "Why would you drive off?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so we went back, and we told the guy that, this smashed windshield happened at your car wash. And my dad was convinced this guy would never admit to it. But it was the time span between when I left the car wash and got home was maybe 30 minutes. So it wasn't a long time span. So when we told the guy, he went into the car wash and he found this big, I don't know, one of those spinner things that had rusted out. And when my car was going through the car wash, it fell from the ceiling and smashed my windshield. They totally admitted to it, and they fixed the windshield. It had actually smashed the windshield, bounced onto my hood, so the hood needed redone. When I was at Penn State, I was parked at a post office and a professor backed into my car. That was another incident. I was dating a guy and his ex-girlfriend was jealous and she keyed my entire car. She went from one side, it wasn't keyed, I would call it knifed. When I came out, my car was literally, it was psh, 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 all the way from the driver's side, all the hood, psh, psh, and then all the way to like the passenger side. I mean, everything but the back end, and I don't think the roof was touched. But I didn't know it was her. I just thought somebody, I had no idea who had done it until it was probably a year or two later. Yeah, she came to me and told me she did it basically. And I was like, wow, so that's, now it all makes sense. I thought I just had a really bad enemy or something. So I've hit a couple of deers in my day. I was driving from Pittsburgh to Penn State and it was pretty dark out and I was just driving along the highway and all of a sudden, boom! And you just don't always really realize what just happened. And then I realized I hit a deer and it was pretty late at night and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna stop in the middle of this highway. The car was still going, so I had maybe 30 minutes more, so I kept going. And I got to my apartment and I got out and it was a good amount of damage to the front of the car. You know, not really, I wouldn't consider that car drivable other than, you know, emergency making it to the apartment. And I remember calling my dad and my dad got to a point where when I called him from college, he just knew. He just knew there was an issue. And he picked up the phone and I could hear the tone in his voice. Even before I said anything, I think he was like, yes. And I said, Dad, I just hit a deer. And I didn't say one more thing. He started screaming. He goes, you get your shit out of that car. I'm having someone come up and tow it, and you're not getting another car. And I was like, okay, Dad. I was really upset because it's traumatic to have an accident, let alone your dad yelling at you. But I did get why he was so upset about all of it. And yeah. I think it was the next day he sent up a tow truck and they towed my car back to Pittsburgh. I mean, I was on his insurance policy, and you know, when your mom's smashing your car twice and your dad's running it over, that is somebody's fault on that policy. So I'm pretty sure that my dad paid for a lot of that stuff out of his pocket. Oh, I had 2 incidents where my wheels and tires were stolen. One, I had a Corvette and I had chrome wheels back in the day when that was popular. I came out to my car and it was under a parking deck, and I was looking, I was like, as I'm approaching it, I thought, boy, my chrome wheels aren't very shiny. And I'm approaching it, and as I looked, and the car was on blocks and my wheels and tires were gone, and my window was smashed out and everything. So that was pretty horrifying. And I guess it was a few years later when I was married, and my husband, it was a Saturday, I think, or a Sunday, and my husband was going to work, and he said, hey, do you mind if I take the Corvette? It was a different Corvette. And I was like, no, go ahead, you know, and I just went back to sleep. And about 5 minutes later, I hear the door open, and I thought, that's odd. And my husband Scott comes in. I don't remember his exact words, but I remember his face. He said, the wheels and tires are gone from the Corvette. And I'm pretty sure I shot out of bed, and I'm pretty sure I punched the wall because I had bloody knuckles. And I went downstairs, and sure enough, wheels and tires were gone from my Corvette. So those are some of the incidents I recall, things like that, but it added up to about 26, and that was between the ages of 17 and, I don't know, 20-something, mid-20s.
Shrewd negotiation starts with finding the right car, and the best way to do that is with Autotempest.com. Autotempest allows you to compare the results from Craigslist nationally with all the top listing sites. So visit Autotempest.com today and see where your next dream car is hiding.